Hey, what's going on, everybody? On today's show, can AI tools really create a high budget ad for just $50? That's the question that freelance commercial director Daniel Lwowski set out to answer. And he posted his results on a recent LinkedIn post. And boy, did he get a lot of comments. But the real story might not be about AI, if AI can, but if AI should, right? So there's a lot of creative professionals who rightfully so have strong opinions about whether AI is coming into their offices, their desks, and maybe soon replacing them entirely at agencies. So this is the topic about today, not only about Daniel's post and what he did, but we'll certainly share that, but really getting into the deeper conversation of where does AI belong in terms of creative process, in terms of commercials, marketing agencies, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be talking about all that today. Today is March 3rd, 2025. This is the Daily AI Show. We do this live every single weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Today, I'm joined by Beth, Andy, I'm Brian, and also we have Carl. We'll see if anybody else pops in the door. Welcome to everybody in our live chat. If you want to join us live, you could always do that by going over to YouTube and jumping in the live conversation. Like I said, this is live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern, as we are right now. Welcome to Jen, Gareth, Jude is in this morning. Justin's in. Wow, we got a few of you guys in. Welcome. Happy Monday morning to everybody in the chat. And by all means, make sure, as you guys always do, throw your comments in the chat. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about AI in marketing? What do you think about AI being used in commercials? Like we saw with Toys R Us or Coca-Cola and these type of things. Put your comments in the chat and we'll certainly talk about it. Okay, guys. So I think obviously there's something that kicked off this idea. It was actually this post that I saw on LinkedIn. So I'm thinking maybe the first thing to do is let's share that. And by the way, Jimmy just joined us as well. Welcome, Jimmy. So let me share this on the screen and then we can talk about sort of the bigger discussion here. But let's look at what Daniel did, and then we can certainly talk about the reactions to it. So 1 second here. Okay, I have it up on screen. There it is. Okay, so this is gonna be kind of small. So let me see if I can zoom in a bit here, just to help us out for anybody that wants to try to read along. But it's okay if you don't. If you just listen to us on Spotify or any of the podcast episodes and you don't have video, it's totally okay. I won't read all of it, but basically Daniel said, this is from 3 days ago on LinkedIn. I recreated a big budget commercial for $50 with the help of Gen AI. I feel like those YouTubers who create amazing photos with their phones or like movie fans who reenact their favorite scenes in their backyard. But I did all of this on my MacBook Air with some AI tools for which I paid around $50 in total. It's crazy what's possible now. That said, as a longtime commercial director, I have to point out that the recreation, which is copying, is something totally different from creation. Great minds have put a lot of passion and thought into this, and he goes on to talk about the people. Now, I will say this. He edited his because he did get some comments that were saying, "Hey, you didn't give what is it? It's not citation, but that's not what I want to say." But anyway, he wasn't giving credit where credit was due to people who were maybe the creative team behind the original commercial. And also, you can hear in his comments that he said, which he said from the beginning, this is copying, because a lot of people pointed out that sure, you can recreate something, but but is that really the same thing? So now I have up on the screen here. I don't know if there was, yeah, I guess there was sound. We'll just watch a little bit of this. I'm assuming maybe he used the original soundtrack. I'm not sure. Okay. So if you didn't see it, and you're not watching us, you just listening to us, let me give you a quick explanation. It's a very artistic video, very well shot, the original. It's for Wick, which is the breath mint, right? Isn't that what that company is? Like men no? What is Wick?
Vicks, right? It's
Oh,
Vicks, like it's a menthol drop and also menthol rub?
but it's spelled W-I-C-K.
Okay.
So I thought it was.
I thought it was
Honestly, when I first saw it, I thought it was too. Now I feel bad that I don't know what Wick is. Anyway, it's like feel the Arctic. It's got a polar bear in it. It's got a pretty woman that's like she's like sort of in like almost like a nightgown and she's in the water. And frankly, if you did see it, why if you're able to see the video, the AI generated what Daniel did. I think I can get your guys' opinion on this, is impressive. It is copying. He went shot by shot and tried his best to recreate, as he said, with about $50 worth of tools, what was already there. So he clearly had what he was going for and then generated images. I think he also said that he animated like images as opposed to maybe creating outright video. So he would try to create like the most direct comparison for the polar bear and then animate that in one way or another using other tools. But before we get into all that, what's your guys, let's, I don't know, go around the horn, or what is your guys' reaction to this in terms of not the comments so much, but like what Daniel actually created here? Impressive, not impressive?
I think it's a very impressive accomplishment. It's not taking a video sample and then recreating that as another version of it. He's literally taking an image that is already depicted in his mind and translating it into to text prompts to generate the image and then animate the image, and he's got an amazing array of tools that will let him actually replicate each sequence that's in that advertisement, and I think what's very impressive about it is that the end result is, to my eye, preferable to the original production.
Wow.
There's some very important improvements to it that were accomplished, I think, by text prompting. So he's not just, making a facsimile of it using video tools. He's using AI, describing to AI what the scene has to be, and the AI probably with some iterative prompting, right? He got some result back and then said, no, no, no.
Mhm.
The polar bear has to swim from left to right in this scene, and then the AI would regenerate that scene, and then he spliced those together. So, yeah, very, very impressive. But my takeaway is it doesn't represent any vision about what the advertisement should be. And he doesn't claim that it is.
Right.
He's just saying, "Look, I reproduced an ad that took people, in pools and or in the Arctic and everywhere going around with a big production team to do the
Right.
filming, and then a bunch of post-production editing and so on. I eliminated all of that with typing text into my computer."
Right.
And
And
let me
that's the amazing advancement.
And I should point out real quick, sorry, Beth. He said it took him 10 hours. I should have read this. And he said he did, to be clear, he did not take any screenshots or and feed them into an image video because that's something somebody would have asked right away. Yeah, great. You just took the image and said, make me another one. Sorry, go ahead, Beth. I just want to make sure I clarified.
Excellent. So, yes, the 10 hours, that he took was actually editing, right? So, editing meaning, continuing to prompt and prompt and prompt so that he could get the end result. It isn't that, like, he did a bunch of work with the image or the video, the 10 hours. The 10 he references that the 10 hours, it was a lot of like, "Yeah, not right, we're gonna continue to kind of do that." So just to clarify that, it is one person at their computer versus, like, taking a crew on a site and trying to get that perfect shot. The other thing is that he is very skilled, right? So he knows the camera he knows the shot, he knows how to describe the shot that
Mhm.
he wants. He knows how to describe the movement of the camera. So there is still an enormous amount of skill in this, or at least a high level of skill for a professional. But he was it was a little. He also mentioned like he was surprised at how close he could come.
Carl, Jimmy.
Um, I'm gonna echo a couple probably things that Junmi's thinking about. There's a bunch of stuff that um, I think first, the thing that we have to realize too is when you're looking at it from the perspective of a cinematographer, videographer versus the perspective of somebody who is the audience, the cinematographer, videographer is gonna pick up on so many different nuances that most people won't pick up on, and they'll geek the crap out of it. Lighting, ISO, um, all the different aspects that you're looking at, angles, why you should do this, where you should do this, and all that. So that's part one. And then what you raised, Beth, was a really good point in that right now, to be able to understand, hey, I want a dolly shot, mid, I want an extreme close up, out close up. I want it to do this with this ISO, this lighting, like in a row. That requires a lot of like actual experience or know-how to do that. It's you could, I guess, bumble your way prompting that, but with an actual skilled videographer knows and a DP knows like what they want to do. But that said, curious because in the profession too, when you're talking about commercials, the abstract commercials are one thing, which it's all art and, like a lot of Super Bowl commercials or whatnot, but a good chunk of actually paid film work isn't like that. It's corporate work, it's real estate work, and it's wedding work. So wedding work, there's no way you can replace AI with barely anything. Like you can kind of do it, but you try telling that to a bride and groom, they're gonna laugh at you. Second thing is terms of real estate. That's the one that potentially you could, but still it's very hard to prompt a house and to actually do the drone shot, the inside shot, and like those kind of things. Then the corporate work is really just, you know, a lot of that is very boring interviews with stock shots or shots of people working, and then maybe a screen capture of the product if they have a product, or if it's just interviews talking about random things. That's like a good chunk of like film work. And I'm still trying to think how you could potentially replace that with AI. You can augment the processes around that, but the actual filming of that is still very difficult. For the abstract stuff though, like that, maybe the Coca-Cola stuff, you kind of can, but then you start running up into the holding consistency is very, very hard, right? Because if I want a subject and I want a wide shot, I want an extreme close up, I want a dolly shot, I want an orbit shot, very, very hard for AI to maintain the consistency of the subject exactly as is in scene after scene after scene after scene after scene. That then it starts moving in from commercial to movie as well.
Jimmy, before you get into yours, I would couple clarifications here. One, I know for sure that the entire polar bear is CG, and I know that because somebody put that as part of their portfolio that they worked on the commercial, and it's photorealistic and it's CG. Whether that makes a difference or not in our conversation, I just want that to be known. Two, it is Vicks, but as you know, with German, V and W has a V sound, so it's just that it's a different part of the world, WICK, but it's probably still pronounced Vic. At least in German it is probably. And so when you go to the websites, if you go to the website for this and you go choose your country, as soon as I choose Great Britain, it switches and shows Vicks. And it was part of a 2023 campaign. So this is not a commercial that was made last week and Daniel worked with. It's from about 2 years old, and it's part of a campaign called Feel the Arctic Air. So just wanted to throw that out there. I think there might also be a tie-in with protecting polar bears. I think that was also part of this and their campaign, but that's probably outside the scope of today's conversation. I just want to kind of throw those in there, Jimmy, because hey, I mean, do we care? I guess the point is, Jimmy, like, and answer how you're going to answer, but like, did we care that the polar bear was CG? And if we don't care if the polar bear is CG or the girl was filmed in a pool with green screen and then edited to make look like she was in the Arctic, because they probably didn't put a barely clothed woman in Arctic water for the commercial. There's probably some adjustments made there, right? To, trick the eye. Then where's the line for AI being part of this? Because we're already saying like, oh, this is the original is such a good commercial. Yeah, the polar bear doesn't exist. The woman was probably in a warm 85-degree pool. We still like the commercial. And then somebody recreates and it does it in AI and everybody goes, whoa, whoa, what do there's like this viral reaction to it. Like I'm curious, Jimmy, like you're creative yourself, just like Beth. Carl, you created a lot of stuff. Like, where do you see the line here?
Okay, so I'll bookend everything for my thoughts. Number one, whether I was impressed or not, I was impressed with his ability to do the matching. Right, so he, like everyone is saying, he's taken his expertise and is able to recreate shot for shot. That I think reaches a milestone for expressing where AI technology is. So I'm on board with that. To exactly what Carl was saying and Beth was saying was taking that expertise and being able to translate it into the language that the AI would best understand. And I think that's a key point to understand too. So I would love to see if there's follow-up posts where he describes the prompts that he ended up with and the process to get there, and having that 10 hours to go from zero, 0 to 1 on that. Um, I think there's an opportunity to learn from the particular tools that he was using how best to communicate. And I think Carl talked about that language, right? Using that expertise, talking about the shots and the focal length and depth of field, and knowing all of these terminologies that AI or LLM tool understands well enough to then translate. And I think if we see that background information, we can see if if that gap has shortened. Because that's a lot of what prompting right now is for any generative AI tool, is being able to ask it the right thing to get the thing that you want out, right? So if we can see how shortened the gap is in that natural language processing, I think that'll probably be really impressive to me from that aspect.
So
Now,
so you're saying that you want to be
so
just so to be clear, I'm trying so I understand. You're saying you want to know what Daniel did, and that helps you determine how, I don't want to put words, but like impressed, or I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Like, you want to know the background process because that would, for you, determine how you impressed or not impressed you are with his output. Is that right?
the process itself, and impressive in how far AI has come from that side of the coin,
Mm,
right?
okay.
The visual elements, the actual generative output, we've seen very high quality photorealistic output. People just playing around or putting in their own prompts and things like that, and getting that photorealistic quality of the output. But the translation gap, being able to for anyone to be able to say, "This is what I want," and translate it and get the output that they want in that, with a shortened amount of time, or a shortened, size of their lexicon, or, terminology, that's I would find that very impressive if, what his ending prompts were not, just indicative of being able to prime for whatever tool that he was using, right? And that's also part of the black box that we see with a lot of these generative AI tools, is they give a guidance or docs, right? OpenAI came out with one that says your structure should have, the trigger and, context and those kinds of things, right? And we see from Runway, they say try and use these terms in your prompts. But if we can get more insight into this LLM likes this language, or these words in this order better than simply, talking, just like, oh, okay, I want it to fly through this thing this way and all this kind of stuff, being specific like that, then I would find that very impressive, because I think that's one of the hurdles that people have for adoption, right? People want to get to the point where they imagine Garfield in their head and they want to see a Garfield cat, but they type out orange tabby and they get what they want, what they're thinking in their head. And I think that translation is a hurdle. Now, to get to your final part of the question of Is there AI? Where is there a boundary for AI acceptance? Things like that, or uncanny valley. Those kinds of questions. I think we've talked about this in the past when it comes to AI in video creation or media creation or anything like that. Is the question really isn't whether AI is acceptable for certain kinds of genres, right? Animation, for example, CG, like you talked about. It's the output of the tool isn't the question people have, right? If it looks visually satisfying, if it has the finger problem, or if you have obvious occlusions and those kinds of issues, for sure. But I think the bigger issue comes with the process and what people are imagining the effort it takes, or lack thereof. What is that going to cost? And I think that's the larger question. But in the terms of accepting it as a visual medium, I'll go back to what Carl says. Right now, the limitations are in these abstract or ethereal types of outputs. Music videos, 100% all day long, you're there. AI can be in there. If you are a musician, songwriter, artist, and you want to make your own music videos and get those onto Spotify or YouTube or whatnot, go right ahead. Hop in there. You're the one who knows what your music is supposed to be about. Go ahead and create those music video, type or genre of videos. Again, we're not in the consistency, replicatable, minute adjustment section, though we are getting a lot closer.
Well, that was gonna be my
Um,
question, Jimmy. Like, does it
yeah.
does it matter? Does it matter that we can't do that today? Like Carl brought up the point of the wedding and said there's no way. And I push back against that. I'd be like, uh, I don't know how to do it today. I don't know if AI can do it today, but I can't tell you how many times people have gotten almost the shot at a wedding. And there's probably lots of videographers that will use AI to fill in between shots that don't actually exist in real life because the end result is going to be better for the bride and groom or whatever they were hoping to get output. And so that videographer in time might say, yeah, I did use AI processing in this. And this shot right here where you guys are walking, you look right at the camera, you guys look beautiful together. Technically, that never happened. You guys never looked both at my camera at the same time, although I wish you had when you were walking back down the aisle. But I used AI to turn your head, to make your eyes lock or make your eyes look at each other. And we got this output of this really beautiful thing. It almost happened. 99% of it was kind of there. I just kind of moved some pieces and parts together to get a better result to it. Or for the 3D, or just for the real estate, how long before drones aren't necessary to do a 3D house tour or whatever? Because simple shots and stitching of a camera together would allow you to create any AI fly through uh of any house that you might be selling in any order that you wanted it to be sold to. I don't know if this is today, but like, is that really what the conversation is about today? Because like we know this will be
I
possible.
I think the convers Yeah, I think the conversation today is it's always about what is important out of whatever that output is, right? Narratively, if it is a story, then I think it's less important about the realism and the process in which you did it. I think for weddings, the bride and groom may be more concerned with, I want this to be a complete, accurate, real representation of our day, or maybe they want a fantastical representation. Real estate, if I was buying a house based upon a walkthrough of the house, or I wanted to take a look at the house as I walk through the house, I want it to be that house. I don't want it to be a rendering of that house, right? So, but again, these are all just situational kinds of things. I think the real question right now, when people have any pushback on whether AI is important in a commercial or whatnot, it's really a question of, oh, he did this with $50 in 10 hours by himself on his computer. So what does that mean for everybody that went into making the original? What does that mean? Do we not need them anymore? Is that the real question? Are they not needed? Right? And I think that's where the more of the existential analysis comes from is it going to replace it? And that might be the case. Now, in terms of democratizing content creation, that's a great idea.
Sorry.
Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish your thought, Jimmy. Okay, I'm jumping.
No, I did. Please.
I think this does change the overhead required to come up with creative ideas. And it also simplifies the testing of advertisement. And so I think it is a net benefit to the whole production process for advertising that is a form of persuasion. So now imagine that, in the storyboarding process, which is always for an ad agency, the beginning of the process, right? Here's the idea. It's just in sort of sketches in a sequence of the shots that we intend. Now, instead of doing that, you produce the entire commercial in a few hours. And then you produce 3 other variations of it, or 5 other ideas. And then you present those to an audience, and you actually have them with the clickers, right? Where they indicate when there's an emotional reaction that they're achieving in response to that image. And now you come up with the final winner of that sort of bake-off process for the advertising concept. That's the vision of what this advertisement will be and how persuasive it will be, and you've already tested it. You pre-tested it with audiences.
Yep.
And now you spend not 10 hours, but you spend 1,000 hours with lots of people involved to really fine-tune that thing, and still you come in at a fraction of the budget of producing a major film-based version of what, or digital film-based version of what a single concept was.
And we see this all the time in Facebook ads, right? I haven't done Facebook ads since 2015. I used to help run people's Facebook ads for them, but it's been a minute. So I don't know exactly what that looks like inside, but I'll speak from the experience I had then, which was a lot of A/B testing. And obviously AI has made that a lot easier to A/B test. So I'm not in the industry for commercials. I don't know if they get tested or not, but I see your point, Andy. Like if there's a person at this agency and they come up with this idea and then they work with Daniel as an example and they say, Daniel, this is my creative idea, but you have expertise in prompting with AI. Let's work together for such and such amount of hours to create a workable, whatever. And then that gets approved and green lighted. And then, like, to your point, Andy, there's a couple variations to it. And now they decide that they're going to test this in small markets in Kansas City, LA, blah, 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 blah. And it really almost sounds to me like a Facebook ad type situation where you're sort of, like you said, battle testing them and figuring out where there's feedback to it or whatever, to ultimately decide where you're going to put your money to do the full edited version. But I agree. I mean, somebody pointed out that he's like, why would you say this only costs $50? What about your hourly rate? And Daniel says here, this is an experiment for myself for research, no client work, no creation. And the experiment cost me $50 for subscription, not my hourly rate, because he was saying, yes, if I was hired to do this, I'm not sure why he'd be hired to recreate a commercial, but regardless, if I was hired to do this, no, my hourly rate certainly was not considered into this. He simply was saying, this is what I paid for the tools to do this. And Beth, you pointed out, that has nothing to do with his already innate ability in that industry to know what he wants to get. The Garfield example, right? Because if somebody said to me, drawing Garfield, there's no chance you guys would you'd see a picture of anything you'd guess is Garfield. Right? I don't have the ability. I just don't. I don't have the drawing ability. My daughter and my wife do, but I couldn't recreate it.
So
You know.
I want to go back to what you said in terms of testing in the small markets to identify the commercial that you're going to use. Because I actually think that because of AI, you could actually test in the small markets to see what appeals to the small market. Right? So if we're remembering, Carl, I believe, is in week 2 of his, is the experiment at week 2, Carl, for your Google ads, for your ad? What happens when what you can do is pull data and modify the image or modify the ad to, appeal within the segments that you want, the individual locations, those kinds of things. I think what this creates down the line is very personalized advertising.
Good.
And maybe there's a right I think I'm sure this has already been doing, but, that then people get sort of grouped potentially into, like, avatars of themselves or, like, an archetype of like, I'm in an archetype of theater majors, let's just say, right? Like, if you know that I'm a theater major, you're gonna show me a different kind of thing. And that is data that AI has collected, but now you can create it. Now you can use that to create it rather than just show me the thing that has already been created.
That's an excellent point, Beth. The reduction in the overall cost of producing a final workable, deliverable advertisement allows for not just one beautiful artistic concept, but 10, each one aimed at a specific market segment that will respond to that particular variation of the concept.
We have some comments. Go ahead, Carl. Then after you, I'll bring in some comments because we do have some great comments about this as well, and some people who work in the industries.
The the funny thing here is I know that like the focus is on the highly produced stuff, but over the past several years, even when I was at Benevity, just looking at the top performing content pieces purely from a social ad perspective, not necessarily a commercial you'd put, whether it's on like a major commercial, but the ones that would kick ass are the ones that are super, super, low production, just taking your phone and recording yourself, the product, and that's it. That is always right now, you put that up against highly produced, I would bet 60-70% of the time, the more authentic one, the one that's low budget, will outperform that one. Because I think the preference right now is just pure authentic, like, they wanna see people, they wanna see who's behind the corporation, they wanna see, behind the scenes, those kinda things, rather than, like, high production, like yeah, one simple one for me was the company spent 20K on a like really like actors and whatnot, and I shot like this thing in 5 minutes with like two people.
Right.
And I just, hey, you want to be in the one or two videos? Like, okay, sure. And I just filmed him walking down and then filmed him with his phone using the product. And then another person filmed that person with my phone using the product.
Yep.
That outperformed the $20,000 actor with all the stuff and DPs and everything. So that's just an observation. It's like this, but then compared to what people are actually reacting to is quite interesting as well.
So one of the things that happens when we put a show together is I do keyword research and there are a ton of keyword questions, keyword etc about AI generated UGC, user generated content, right? So that's not that doesn't get to the place that people want, right? Because these are AI these are generated, these aren't actual users, and the value of user generated content is the actual user. But you have to have actual users who can give you the quality or even the low quality that you want. And I thought that was very interesting that those were like really top keywords, key questions, key related concepts.
I want to pull in some comments here because this is a recent comment from Jude Simmons. Did we just create a marketing firm? So that's just the preface of what's been going on in the chat and why I always recommend to everybody coming in and joining the chat live if you can. Obviously, if you're available during our live chat, again, that's weekdays, Monday through Friday. We're here at 10 a.m. Eastern. In case you're watching this on a replay or you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or something like that, just know that you always have the opportunity to be part of this conversation as it's happening. It's one of our favorite parts of doing the live show. So I can't read everything here, but some of the original or earlier comments that I liked were I think I would say somebody else was saying about testing. I think I was responding to Andy and I was testing about it and saying like, oh, you could test it. And they're like, why 10 versions? Why not 10,000? Why not 100,000 versions? And and Jimmy, I see you shaking your head to that. And what that made me think of is, yes, there's probably some version of this that gets put in a um oh man, it just went right out of my head. Not digital twin, where it perhaps before it reaches the human eyes and ears, is run through simulations, AI simulations. So you have AI created stuff with maybe people creatives who had the storyline, right? But they may have also used the claws of the world and things like that to help them flesh out what it is. I mean, you can certainly train Claude if you wanted to on what all the key components are of highly effective commercials. I'm sure I could do that and come up with something. Doesn't make me a creative. Doesn't mean I should start making commercials professionally tomorrow. I can get close enough, right? So then I can create something that I think is a good idea. And then maybe in the future here, there's, you have agencies and they're like, well, we can run that through the digital twin 100,000 times. And we'll come back and give you the data of which of these top 10 have the best chance before there's even money spent to put them as an actual commercial or getting them out in front of actual public eyes. So they were talking a little bit about that. Um, uh, I don't say McBab, MICBAB. I don't know what name that is, but was putting in comments and they were saying at the moment, AI generated video is still challenging, but it could be useful during the prototyping and brainstorming phases. Hiring an external agency to create a few prototypes of advertising can be very expensive. Yeah, I would imagine so. And that's something we're going to see come down over time, right? We can see that probably being less of a prohibitive cost for companies. Gareth was talking about, he was responding to Justin, say like he does do I think it was art and stuff in there as well. And they were talking back and forth. Justin and Greg and Gareth and Joel and McBab were all talking about different ways that you could go about it and their experiences with AI generated, commercials or content. They were talking about seeing an AI billboard and not necessarily being bad. I What do you guys think is like when people see this with Daniel? Obviously, people had, I mean, there's 200 and something comments on this, which isn't like the most viral post I've ever seen or anything, but 241 comments on this from a range of people with a range of backgrounds, from 3D artists were on here, people in all sorts of different areas were commenting, both positive and negative, to what Daniel initially did. And he, to his credit, responded to lots of people and gave his reasonings for why he did it and stuff like that. But in this particular case, he's recreating something where there might be the uncanny valley of like, oh, does she, not the polar bear maybe as much, but like, oh, does that woman actually, is she moving the way a human would? Is her flow, is like, is it throwing me off with this commercial? But like, I think you kind of pointed out, Carl, like, okay, that's AI in something that's supposed to be photorealistic. And we're supposed to look at this, perhaps, let's say Vic used this or Vicks used this AI generated instead. And we went, "Ah, it doesn't look very real. And I'm kind of thrown off by that or whatever." But now take a Red Bull commercial. They're animated characters. Red Bull gives you wings. They've been around for a decade or more at this point, and they're just literally, they look like hand drawn. If the company feels like that style promotes them, gets the point across, increases sales, are we really going to see big budget companies like Coca-Cola? Are they going to care as much that this was the process that always happened in the past and this is the way it was, so we should continue to do that? Or are they going to be profit driven and they're going to say, we love our creative people, we love our in-house, and we love the agencies we work with. However, back to your original point, Andy, like, there's no denying that this is going to give us the result we want as a company, since we're paying, and we now think we can do it for 10x less than what we were previously doing that. Are we expecting the Coca-Colas of the world to just not do that? Or is it going to be an individual? I don't know. I just feel like this is like, it's kind of inevitable. And I understand the backlash, but I only think it's a backlash when people are trying to pass it off as humans or something that should have been a human but wasn't. But once it gets into any of the other areas, I go, isn't that kind of animation? Isn't that kind of CG graphics? Isn't that kind of the same thing we're talking about?
One thing I want to point to is once something becomes super easy, right? There's I don't know, Jimmy, if you remember, if any of you remember, there's a style that went around in the mid 2010s. It was cinematic B-roll. Like quite a lot of artists and videographers were using cinematic B-roll, and to the point where everything would became cinematic B-roll. And there was kind of a backlash towards that because it's like, hey, there was a term, it's like the Daniel Schiffer style, because essentially Daniel Schiffer and a couple of them, they started that with a lot of fast transitions, especially the crazy transitions from one scene to a next. Like, and some people are still doing it today, but I feel like if you have an abundance of one, it's usually the company that does, you zig when everybody zags kind of deal. So it's like if everybody's starting to use AI for everything, then I've always a couple years ago I made the points like, hey, human can anything that showcases human connection and human experience will be at a premium
Mhm.
because it becomes so easy to create stuff with AI.
Yeah.
And as the easier it gets, you'll get a flood of it. We're already seeing it, right? Posts, content, faceless AI videos, like all that stuff is there. But again, you on the opposite side, it's still hard to create the more like true, like even just running the show. This is a show that we could have easily cloned our own voices and have one of us just do, hey, we want to talk about this today. This, let's just create a transcript, load it up to whatever tool, and create a show. And each of us talk. And it would be
Yep.
probably faster for us to do that. But how, what would that feel like in general? Because I still feel all these people who are in the audience want to connect with us in some form or fashion. They're on the show every day. So if you have that, then you kind of can tell people still want human connection. And it's harder to do human connection than it is to just create a bunch of AI content too. So there's that aspect of it. It's cool now because it was wow, everybody can create, but once everybody can create, that bar becomes low. But what becomes hard is still people still appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
look at Mission Impossible movies where Tom Cruise does his own stunts. How much of a big deal do they make about that, right? Now you're like, it's a Mission Impossible movie, but they want you to be impressed that that is a human hanging off of that aircraft while it's taking off. It's really important for us to know that that Tom Cruise did that. It's in all the marketing, right? It's a definite big push to that. Because to your point, Carl, they want you to know that's not a CG person. That's not a CG, of Tom Cruise. And there's not some big cutaway that they're going to do a single shot and you're going to know for sure that was Tom Cruise hanging off the side of it. It's right.
So I'm gonna weave off the movie thing because we had a discussion in an episode that I don't know the number of, but it was about when will an AI generated movie win an Oscar,
Yeah.
right? And the point of making movies that win Oscars is that movie makers vote for the Oscar, right? The point of advertisement is to get people to have a positive affiliation with with your product and want it. And so we can't divorce the public's response to this, which was really interesting in in the conversations that got created from this post, from this experiment. Like there were a lot of people who were saying basically what Brian was saying initially, right? Because we can, does that mean that we should as a company, like we don't we don't have the ability, even we on the Daily AI show who talk about this all the time, don't have the ability about whether it's going to happen or not. But is it a wise decision for your personal company to move in that direction if your users or audience or customers would not take kindly to that? So I think that that needs to be played into this too. It's not just the capability of the tools and it's not just the capability of the professionals you have on staff. Yeah.
Cisco found it faster than I did, but it's episode 189 that you were referring to, Beth. I literally looked in the comments after I found it. Cisco's like episode 189. Like, dang, Cisco. Faster than I can get there. That's impressive. The name,
Is gonna be the unofficial official archivist of, the Day AI show?
uh, the name of the show or that episode, yes, it was episode 189, but when was that? How would you find that if you want to hear? That was a fun conversation, by the way. Will an AI movie win an Oscar within 7 years? That was the name of our show. So if you want to go find that, or probably just episode 189 with the Daily AI show, will probably get you pretty close. But that was a fun conversation. I definitely think there's a tangent between this one and that one. So yeah, good call out on that one, Beth. Um, Dang, I had another. Oh, I was gonna say, just as a thought process here. You've sort of said it. I think everybody's kind of said like there's a premium placed. We've talked about it on the show how though there's a premium placed on what is uniquely human. I know I've said I'm not gonna say everybody agrees with this, but I'm very, very bullish. Like if I had money to invest, I would look for companies that are about the arts and are want to create live human art projects, whether that's going to a art gallery and somebody's literally carving a trunk of wood into something, or they're live painting or ice sculpture. There's a lot of ways to look at that, right? My wife was reminding me actually that we have two really cool carved pieces that are from our time when we were in Honolulu, Hawaii, before when I proposed. So I don't know, 2004, somewhere in that range, from a long time ago. We still value those in our house because we watched the guy sit there and carve these pieces with a simple knife, and it was just really, really impressive to us. The other one that comes to mind, because this, you're right, Carl, it's a little skewed because, and not to be grim about this, but okay, the 2008 Olympics, it was in China. And the opening ceremony, you may or may not remember this, had a bunch of what looked like boxes, and there was this huge choreographed piece. There had to be 2,000 humans on the center field of the stadium where they're doing an opening ceremony doing this choreo. Go back and watch it if you don't know what I'm talking about. It sticks out in my mind as something that's one of the most impressive things I've seen. Now, the grim part of that is it also happens, it was 8808 and it happens to be the day my mom passed away. So there might be more that it sticks to me because my mom was a huge Olympics fan and stuff. So I don't mean to bring that into it. My point to it is I'm to this day still so blown away by the choreography that it took to create that art piece in the middle of the opening ceremony. Could they have done it with actuators and pistons and things? Yeah, 100%. Even back then, 2008, right? No issue, not even an AI thing. But does that still sit with me as a more impressive thing because I understand the hours that it must have taken for the human to create it? So will there be the emphasis, or will there be a premium placed on real, verifiable, unique human experiences? I think so. And that will probably translate into commercials and things like that. To your point, Carl, I definitely think so. But you have to be the right company that knows that that's the marketing message that's important to you and your customers, that they're going to value that. I think for you to put money in and do it that way. And maybe you're right, Carl. Like when everybody's zigging to AI, this will be the zag that some company does. And it'll literally be their CEO walking around their office with an iPhone. And those will be the commercials. And they'll do phenomenal because they're so authentic. They're so low budget. You know, maybe. I don't know. Nope.
Well, Teddy knows will he AI as well.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
My big takeaway on this is that this is the progression of digital sampling in music, and Beth included one of the comments from the original post that really resonated with me. It's from a keyboard player who's been using sampled orchestras, drummers, guitarists, singers for over 25 years, and he's a little perplexed about why this doesn't just show the same progression towards the enablement of an individual composer to create an orchestral piece, to arrange something using digital sampling in a way that allows them to produce this without the cost of a whole, studio of musicians in order to deliver it. So similarly, in video now, a single person sitting at a computer can produce a video that is faithfully like what it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce just a few years ago.
Mhm.
So it really is an empowerment of creativity by individual humans. And that I think is progressive. I think that that's a really good thing.
Any other last thoughts, Jimmy? Anybody?
Was another comment that I saw, and it was from Dipankar Mukkari, yes. Sorry, I am trying. Um, Basically, they shouted it, all in caps, the vision of AI replaces the camera, not the people behind it, right? So, just like having a camera in your pocket all day does not make everyone a photographer.
Mhm.
Like, the skills of being a photographer are still really clear. It does lower the bar for people to be able to increase their photographic vision and skill. This is similar to that. This is that replacement.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't care if Daniel gave me all the tools he used and told me the workflow, unless he showed me his prompts, I don't think there's any chance that I could recreate anything close to what Daniel did. So
And
there's real talent there, obviously.
there is real value in our own time, right? It isn't that Carl isn't capable of taking out the recycling, it's that he values the convenience of having something else do it, right? And that is sort of a decision process I think that people will make in this context as well.
I mean, if somebody has this started
And on that note, tune in for tomorrow's show where we'll discuss if Carl will finally get his recycler robot.
oh, that's great. Tomorrow's our recycling show.
Recycling robot show. That's what
robot
you just did it. You said it.
Listen to the comments. I know it's 10 a.m. on the East Coast, but it's got to be 5 p.m., 5 o'clock somewhere. If somebody has not started a drinking game for how many times we talk about AI robot recycling, y'all are missing out because it's in the comments and everything else. Somebody somewhere in the world should be having fun with this. That's all I know. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, whatever plus 12 or whatever it is. That's 7 hours is from here, from the East Coast. Okay, well, listen, we're gonna wrap this one up. We do have a really good show coming up tomorrow. Jen said he was giving us props for a great Monday show. What a killer show for Monday. Damn y'all. Thanks, Jen. Appreciate the comment. Yeah, I mean, look, we hope they're all this good. Honestly, it's what we're shooting for. But you will know for the near future, it is always going to be our human, thoughts and conversation on it. And hopefully that's what keeps you coming back over and over again. Like and subscribe as always. We appreciate you. You can go check out our free newsletter if you like by going to thedailyasha.com. The last one went out yesterday. And it's always a good bit of extra AI information above and beyond what we're doing here. And as Jimmy said, tomorrow, AI robots are getting smarter. Are we ready? That's the topic for tomorrow. This is a show that we've been wanting to do for a while now, so we're all ready for it. I think it's going to be a really, really fun conversation. Come back tomorrow for sure. Wednesday for the news, and the rest of the week for more fun AI discussions. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for all the conversation in the chat. Thanks to everybody on the discussion panel here, and we will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then.
Aloha.